This video is for anybody who's been in a serious band and knows the emotional struggle of putting your all into something and it not working out. So, once upon a time, me and my best friend started a band, and we poured our hearts and souls into taking it as far as we could. We grinded in the regional music scene, playing shows, traveling, making records, and doing all the things that bands do. We even started our own music festival. We were really, really good, and well respected regionally. But in the end, like most bands, we didn't make it. And the letting go of that dream marked a significant turning point in my life. It was a coming-of-age experience. I started as a naive 20-year-old who was on a mission with my friends to make it in music. And over the course of a few years of trying, grew up into an adult who had to learn some harsh truths about life in the music industry. So this is the story of trying to make it with my band, and what it taught me about art, friendship, failure, and what it means to pursue a dream. So I'm going to breeze through the actual story of my band, because I doubt that you really care for the in-depth history of a band from New Jersey that you've never heard of. But I got to give you some backstory. So my band is called Out of the Beard Space, and it started in 2010 when I was 20 years old. In between my first and second years at Berkeley, me and my childhood friends decided to write some songs and play a show. And making the music that I really wanted to be making with my best friends just felt so much more meaningful than practicing jazz standards at Berkeley. So, much to the dismay of my parents, I dropped out of Berkeley and made this new band my main pursuit in life. I moved home from Boston, we all rented a band house together in South Jersey, and started hitting the ground running in the local music scene. We were really, really good, and everybody in the band is a killer on their instrument. And so pretty quickly we became bigger fish in the small pond of our local scene. Musically we were very proggy, in the vein of Zappa and Yes. And for these first few years we were trying to break into the prog scene in the Northeast, which is quite small. But after a while we discovered the jam band festival world, which seemed not only bigger and more lively, but a better way to play our weird music to a younger crowd. So we figured, what better way to break into the festival scene than to start a festival? So we started a festival, which obviously deserves a whole video of its own, which I'll hopefully get to someday. So we drove all around playing different festivals every weekend, and over the course of a few summers, worked our way up to headlining some of the small ones, that's us in the big font, sub-headlining some of the medium ones, and even getting on some of the really big ones, that's us in the tiny font. And it was an unforgettable period of time, making great music, traveling around in a van, the highs of playing a raging late-night festival set, and the lows of driving 5 hours to play for 3 people, having a purpose, an identity, status in a scene, the incredible sense of camaraderie that comes from being on this mission with your best friends to convince the world of your artistic greatness. But nothing lasts forever. There were a bunch of reasons why things fizzled. We never really toured hard enough to build up enough of a following or be attractive to a booking agency. Some of the band wanted to go hard and aim high, and not everybody in the band was on that same page. Our music was kind of too all over the place to fit neatly into any one scene. Our personal relationships had suffered from years of working together so closely. I don't know, I guess it was a bunch of things, but the real reason why things fizzled is that as you get older, your ideas of what you want out of life evolve and mature. Being in a serious band takes up all your time, and what it makes sense to put all your time into changes as you grow into an adult. So we went on hiatus. Now, we came out of hiatus a year later, and the band's overall story doesn't end there, but the period of us being a hardworking band that was serious about making it ended there. And for a while I was kind of lost and had like an identity crisis of sorts, because my whole sense of self and visions of my future were wrapped up in the band. But life went on. I developed an artistic identity outside the band, I continued growing as a person, and my art and career continued to progress. And now, many years later, I've done a lot of processing of that whole experience. And so, looking back on it all, here are some hopefully useful things that I've learned about being in a band. Number 1, your band is not going to make it. I don't want to come across like I'm telling you that you're not going to make it just because my band didn't. That's really not where I'm coming from. I hope your band makes it, and I hope everybody's dreams come true. But just real talk, almost no bands make it. Plenty of incredible bands who deserve to make it are out there grinding their asses off for years, making great art, and not making it. And plenty of bands that you think are making it, who kind of look like they're making it, are actually just scraping by. If your band is good and you work hard, you'll have a window of time where you're the new fresh thing on the scene that has some buzz and is able to get some people out to shows. Capitalize on that while you can, get as far as you can, live it up, but at some point, it's probably going to end and you'll have to move on to whatever's next. And you know what? It's fine. In fact, it's beautiful. In fact, it's probably better that creative endeavors don't last forever. I mean, do you really want to be out there creating the same kind of music with the same people for decades? I mean, how many bands do you think are out there still doing it long after the creative spark has died just because it's successful? It sounds like a slow death to me. And if all that sounds jaded or like I'm being a downer by telling you that your band's not going to make it, I'm only saying it because if you have a mature perspective on the situation and understand the role that your band plays in your life, then you'll realize that your band not making it isn't a failure. I definitely felt at the time like I had failed. Like I had poured all my hopes and dreams into this band being successful, and my dreams were smacked to the ground by the cruel hand of the way the world actually works. But years later, I now realize that my band not making it was not a failure at all, because it was directly responsible for everything that happened after it. Pretty much any gig I've ever gotten, from small local stuff like church and wedding gigs to the big stuff, can be traced back to that band in some way. Because that band was how I made most of my connections in the scene, and how I gained most of my skills as a player. And pursuing that dream taught me about pursuing dreams, which has since then influenced how I pursue things, and shaped which dreams I decide to pursue. So it doesn't matter that we never went on to tour the world, because it was a chapter in the larger narrative of my life. A chapter which, if it hadn't happened, wouldn't have led to the other chapters. It's also important to realize that you are more than your band. Your greatest asset as a musician is yourself and your skill set. Work hard as an individual to be the best musician that you can be. Definitely go through your year or two or three where you practice really hard and get really good. Have an individual voice and things that you're going for independently of your band, so that your story can easily continue when the band ends. People who are serious about having a life in music do all kinds of things. They teach, they play gigs of probably a wide variety, they compose, etc. And to do all that, you have to be good and you have to be versatile. If all you want to do is play with your band and you don't have a musical or creative life outside of that, it's going to be that much harder when your band doesn't make it. But making it is overrated anyway. We grow up in a world that tells us that in order to be valid, we have to be successful. And so we claw and grind and hustle our way to making something of ourselves. And musicians are already starting off at a deficit because the world thinks that we should really just grow up and get a real job. And so we have to work that much harder to be seen as valid. But especially in recent years, I've had a growing awareness that so many of the things that I've pursued and valued, my band's making it, growing this YouTube channel, things like that, will not matter on my deathbed. How many people knew my name and consumed my art will not matter on my deathbed. So why should it matter so much now? What really matters is being happy and healthy, having good relationships, and living the day-to-day life that you want to live. Take it from somebody who's spent New Year's Eve 1,000 miles from home playing an arena show, but was sad that I wasn't at home ringing in the new year with my best friends around a fire in a backyard. Who's missed weddings and birthdays of friends and family because I was away on tour. And I guess I'm saying all that because I see creative and entrepreneurial people sometimes working so hard to make something of themselves that they either forget to or don't prioritize living a balanced life. There's no prize for having the most YouTube subs in the graveyard, is what I always have to remind myself. So I've probably come across as a little jaded. I mean, I'm definitely a little bit jaded, but I think there's an element to being jaded that's just being realistic. And there's an element to being idealistic that's just being naive, which I definitely was when I was 20 and just starting out. But I'm trying to ride this line of giving some straight truths about being in bands without making you feel like it's not worth doing. Because I still feel connected to the idealistic magic of making art and bringing it to the world. It's absolutely worth doing. And I really do think that you should join bands. Like, it's one of the most incredible ways of connecting with other musicians, connecting to a music scene, and putting art out into the world. And I wouldn't trade my experiences traveling around in a van with my best friends playing shows for anything. And speaking of them, what ended up happening to my band anyway? Well, we're actually still together. We've been together for 15 years now. Jesus Christ. Since that year-long hiatus, we've taken just a handful of shows each year. We play when we feel like playing, and the festival we started over 10 years ago has continued going strong. Half of us got married and had children, most of us bought houses within blocks of each other, and we've remained best friends. In fact, our friendships are probably stronger than they were back in the day. We might not be on the road to selling out arenas, but I think we're all much happier than if we were. I have no regrets at all. So check out my band, Out of the Beard Space, and our festival, Beard Fest. And hey, maybe if this video blows up and enough of you become fans, maybe we'll end up making it after all. Who knows?